This podcast is brought to you by Primary Arms. Primary Arms seeks to provide the best shopping experience for everything firearms. With over 13,000 products from over 400 top brands, Primary Arms carries a complete selection of rifles, handguns, firearms parts, shooting gear, apparel, and more. Every order comes with a commitment to superior service backed by fast shipping and an expert support team. Primary Arms, serving freedom since 2008. Find out more at frn.deals/PA. Hello and welcome to the AR-15 podcast. This show's for you if you just bought your first rifle or if you've been building them for years. There's something we can all do to take our black rifles to the next level. My name is Nick Dooley. I am joined tonight by my co-hosts Garth Over.
How we doing?
And Tyler Brockle.
Hey, everybody.
Now, tonight we also have another very special guest for this special episode of the AR-15 podcast. We're joined by my friend Ron Carter. Ron, how we doing?
Gents, I am sleep deprived and well. I'm glad to be with you.
All right. Well, if you haven't seen it from what the name of this episode is, Ron just got back from Eastern Europe. So if you've kind of had questions or been on the fence about some things, Ron might be able to tell you what's actually happening there and talk about what's happening to the actual Ukrainians. Because everyone knows that, well, government sucks. And, you know, that's
100% government sucks. Yes.
It doesn't matter which one it is. But, so now that I have said those things, Ron, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, your backstory, and how you wound up in Ukraine?
Yeah, gents. So thanks for having me. Of course, Nick. It's good to see your face again. I'm digging the mustache. It's been a while. Tyler, Garth, I haven't met you in person yet, but I hope to soon. Yeah, gents. I'm a gun guy, right? If you're watching right now, you probably see my little patch wall. I've got my presses, my single stage reloading press, my Hornady, progressive press. I do a lot of shooting. Been a firearms instructor for a while. Worked a little bit at a gun shop back in the day. Competition shooter, IDPA. By the way, IDPA just said that we can, carry and work from appendix, which is cool. Do a little bit of USPSA shooting. I like my Glocks with carry optics. I like my rifles, my AR rifles suppressed. And I've been interested in Ukraine for a very long time. Back in 1997, I'll date myself. 1997, we had this thing called a computer, and we could, start to play games on it. It was this weird thing. I don't know if you've ever done anything like that, but there was this game called Jane's Fighters Anthology. So you're a fighter pilot, right? A fighter pilot, and you had like a wide variety of aircraft that you could fly. And I mean, it was fun. It was really cool. I mean, it was all just kind of seat of your pants, learn as you go sort of stuff. The campaign, ironically enough, centered around Ukraine. And ever since then, this 1997 stupid little game, I've been very interested in Ukraine, especially after, of course, 2014. You may not remember 2014, the revolution, I guess you would say, that was happening in Kiev, and they're ousting the former pro-Russian government and installing the current government. Yeah, so I was very interested, and of course I'm a history nerd, so I've read a lot about spy culture. Oleg Gurdovsky, one of the British double agents. I guess he was a double agent. He was a KGB colonel that defected to MI6. I've always been very interested in this whole Eastern European thing, and I was calling this, guys. I was calling that this was going to escalate and continue to escalate, and it did. So about 3 days, not even 3 days, let's say 2 days into the invasion, I was already starting to see civilian casualties. And maybe you saw it too. Maybe you saw the BMP like run over a civilian car on day two. I was so mad. I was angry. I was so livid. I started making phone calls to anybody that had friends that were in the area or going to the area, and I found a guy that was from Philadelphia that was going. He is a Ukrainian American, and and he was going to buy a car, he's going to, run supplies. And so I said, hell yes, I can do this. So I got a lot of supplies. I made a couple of silly, Facebook requests for donations. I got a lot of IFACs, trauma gear. Had a lot of friends that donated money to me so I could go to 511 and buy as many tourniquets as possible, all that good stuff. And I went. I went. I'm in a particular position because I work for an airline. My day job is for an airline, and because of my flight benefits, I'm able to go places and do things that a lot of people just financially can't. So I jumped on a lot of airlines. I got to Warsaw, and when I got to Warsaw, 30 minutes into Warsaw, I linked up with my buddy, and the very next night I was in Ukraine.
So I know that probably clearing customs between Warsaw and Poland is a little bit not the same as clearing it on the return trip, like flying back to the States, because I doubt there's a lot of border guards right now checking people as they drive across.
Well, it's funny you say that. Yeah, I mean, right now, Warsaw Border Patrol, if you will, those guys. I would say that their standard operating procedure has gone out the window, and they've adopted a full new set of parameters. And it's learning as you go for a lot of those guys. One friend of mine went into country with a PVS 14 and plates, and was detained by Poland for a little while until they were able to confirm that it was for him and that he had nothing else to give. It was personal stuff as opposed to importing or exporting, however you look at it. For me, I got to Warsaw, from Chicago here to Warsaw. Got in line for the Customs and Border Patrol, and the guy says, "Where you go?" Ukraine, if God allows it. And he said, "Do you have COVID vaccine?" Yes. Yeah. Yes, I do. And I showed him my card, and then he said, "Do you have negative tests?" I'm like, "Negative test? I'm sorry, I didn't realize I needed a negative test." He's like, "You don't." And I went.
Is he just messing with you or what?
I don't know. I was right behind the flight crew, which, by the way, I'm because I'm airline. Like, I introduce myself to the crew normally, and so I was chatting with them while we were waiting on this customs guy. So I'm not sure if he picked up on my friendliness with the flight crew, or if he was just being silly. But yeah, it was kind of funny. Like, he stamped the shit out of my passport.
But going back to the stuff that you were bringing over, then because obviously all of that wasn't intended for you. Are they fine with that as long as it fits into a certain category of materials that you're bringing over the border?
Yes. So it's interesting too. I thought that TSA would try to regulate more of what's leaving the country going to the Eastern European theater, and it's entirely the states that are bordering that area, the recipients, of those states that are curious about that. And apparently they're kind of quasi enforcing U.S. State Department stuff, because the U.S. State Department oversight ITAR regulations and whatnot has a direct effect on NATO allies. So they obviously looked in all of my bags and stuff, and in my bags, like, I had medical stuff. I didn't have anything that would be considered ITAR regulated materials or the need for exports. And I'm sure that several guys are getting hit because they have items that may be considered prohibited by the State Department.
So ITAR, for anyone who isn't familiar with what that is, ITARs, as it's generally called, ITAR, off the top of my head, without Googling it furiously, is International Treaty of Arms and Regulation. And what that is what allows you to import and export things from the U.S. And in the past, that has even gone so far as to like what you could post to like a YouTube video for training. Because if you're showing like doctrine and training and all of that could be accessed by other people. I know they've had deals. That was one of the ways they tried to shut down like 3D printed guns. Because if you're exporting the STL files to somewhere outside of the country, are you technically exporting weaponry and stuff like that? And there is a whole bunch of stuff and a giant amount of fines. Like, I know we have several listeners in Canada and stuff like that, and that's the reason why shipping things between like the U.S. and Canada, even though it's pretty much the 51st state, can't really bypass that easily, is because of those ITAR restrictions. Now, I was going to ask you about that because, like, I've even seen, politicians call for, let's send arms over, and send, like, turn in your guns and we'll send them to Ukraine. And exporting firearms out of the U.S. is actually incredibly hard to do. It is way harder to export than it is import.
Yes.
International traffic and arms regulations, by the way.
Yeah, it wasn't treaty. It was
Good try, though. It was great.
Yeah. Not bad for off the top of your head. Well done.
I had to Google that, by the way, so don't give me the credit.
Yeah, I just know odd things.
Very odd.
Yeah, and ironically enough, plates, armor plating, bulletproof vest, if you will, plates and carriers, that falls under a bit of those regulations. And in fact, I have the Code of Federal Regulations somewhat available. Let me look that up so I can tell anybody who's wanting to go to theater, you can't bring any more than your personal items that you're going to wear. So if you're going to bring 2 sets of plates, well, you better have 2 people to fill those plates on the flight coming in, or else one of those is going to get confiscated. That also applies to gas mask and the filters, the filtration. It does. Let's see, the CFR is 22 CFR 120.1. And 120.1 all the way down. And of course, if you're just reading that, you're probably going to go to sleep, starting to read it, 120.1. But there's a lot there. The problem is you also have case law that deals with that. And the current case law that specifically applies to this is out of the Cornell update mid-2020. So, plates, gas mask, weird stuff that falls strangely under State Department regulations.
Yep, and I know that night vision is under that as well.
Big time.
So night vision's a very large one, and part of the reason why the deals with those is, as they say, well, we don't want the enemies of the United States to get this technology and then reverse engineer it. Which I understand if somebody's taking steel body armor, it's that's super hard to reverse engineer.
I know. It's never been done before.
Yep. But specifically, some of the soft armor types are like, some of the older, like the dragon skin armor that was issued for a short time and is now unobtainium. Things like that were a very much so, close kept secret as to how those things went through. So I thought it was really interesting when you were taking medical items. And so I am a guy who likes to be prepared for random things to happen to them. So like when I fly in my carry-on, I carry a trauma kit that's got, shears and the works and all of that. And I remember the first time I flew with it, I went, I wonder if TSA is going to give me a hard time because I'm flying with trauma shears.
Oh, what happened?
Absolutely nothing. They didn't even look twice. They just went, oh, yep.
Yeah, in my job, I fly a tremendous amount. In fact, I need to pick up a trip this week. And, I usually fly 4 days a week. And, the average is like 2 or 3 flights a day. And I've carried a trauma kit with me for since 2018. And the only person that's ever given me a problem was our in-house Denver security, which ironically enough was a Russian lady who would always stop me and search me and pull out the shears and say, "You cannot have these." And I'm like, "Yes, I can." Yeah. Yeah.
They're blunted trauma shears. They're
Right.
So how many bags did you take with you then? Were you like National
I got
Lampoon
one.
Vacation it, where you got like whole stacks of them?
No, so I was able to pack one very large, massive, largest rollerboard rollerboard that I had,
Sure.
full of trauma gear, and then I'm taking my personal bag that inside has a backpack and then a little personal item Had my batteries and whatnot. So my bag with backpack and my little bitty bag with batteries came with me on the airplane, and I checked the huge one. And I got to tell you, that's a pain. That's a real pain. I usually don't check bags because I'm savvy about how I pack and how much I can pack. Dude, I can pack 2 weeks in a bag that can go in a Embraer 145. If you don't know what an Embraer 145 is, go search that, because those are tiny overhead bins. I could pack for a week and plus, off of that. And I did just that with the large one. Man, I crammed that thing so full. It it was a very, very meticulously packed in space. So just one huge one, and then my personal stuff.
Yep, we call those a man purse, the personal item.
Yep,
They're all
exactly.
the rage in Europe.
Now it's funny. The guy that I linked up with from Philly, he started making phone calls. In fact, he got on. He was a guest on Fox and Friends, like 2 days before he booked his ticket and went. And LOT Airlines, the Polish national airline, had like basically given him a deal where if he could bring it to the airport, he could check it for free. And so he ended up bringing I think it was 10 bags, 10 big carry-ons. And he wasn't as savvy as packing as I was, but he had a whole ton of bags, and that was a big problem for him trying to transport that in the airport.
All right, so we covered a little bit of the ITAR stuff, and then like how you got there, and obviously your buddy Oleg dance party is you get picked up there. He's talking to Fox and Friends, and you're talking to us. So
yeah,
way better trade-off.
Absolutely. I mean, I know you guys. I'm going to be friends with you guys for a long time. I don't think Oleg's going to be friends with any of those Fox and Friends dudes for a while. I don't know. Yep. Maybe so.
So now you've made it to Ukraine, and I obviously we've known each other for a while, and I was keeping up with what was going on, and watching for your post while you were over there. And so after you got into Warsaw, and you said you took off for Ukraine, what was going on for like the average average Igor Ukrainian?
Oh man. Well, first of all, Warsaw and all of Poland really is saturated with refugees leaving Ukraine. So I mean, there's nowhere that you could go where you don't hear Ukrainian being spoken, and see women and children. By the way, it's all just women and children. Grandmothers, mothers, and kids that are leaving Ukraine.
Are the numbers factual on the news? Like they're saying 2 million, or is it even greater than that?
It's way fucking more, dude. It's way fucking more. There's no. I'm sorry for the profanity. There's no way it's that low. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Give you kind of the context. We're making our way to the border. This is Monday night. Monday night, we're on our way to the west. And there's like several checkpoints that the Polish guys have, Polish police have going to the border, and they're trying to like point everybody away, like go somewhere else, go somewhere else. And they try to tell us, that we can't go that way, and like we're going that way. I'm like, no, you not come back. I'm like, don't care. See you in hell, and show them my passport, American passport, and I'm like, okay. So we get to the first Polish outbound customs into Ukraine, get through there, okay, and they're telling us you're not coming back. I'm like, cool, I'm not coming back, whatever. Which we know we're going to come back. We've made contact with dudes in Ukraine, so we understand a little bit more about that. And we get into Ukraine, and I mean just within like the first 500 yards, you can see that this is an entire migration of a country. There's groups of people moving in like 50 at a time, clearing Ukrainian customs, then clearing Polish customs, and then getting on a bus, and they're gone. They're going to refugee centers. And we passed so many of these buses on the way there. And we didn't really imagine that they were people buses. And so then that kind of clicked in my head when I saw, people getting on the buses, these Ukrainian refugees getting on buses. I'm like, wow, we probably passed like 100 of these buses, getting over here just tonight. And we offloaded our stuff. We came back into the Ukrainian outbound, and then the Polish outbound or inbound customs. We got stuck. Our van is really tall, and the line that the Polish entrance customs got us in had an awning that was going to chop off the top of our van.
Insert Polish joke here.
Yeah. And by the way, the Polish, maybe I can't say that. I don't know. Or maybe you can Google this. The Polish border guys may or may not be carrying Walther P99s, and that's it. Meanwhile, your Ukrainian dudes have some very, very, very good-looking, just past inspection rifles. Difference in professionalism. Professionalism is completely different right in this area, but we can't get our van out because it's going to chop off, the top of our van. So we're trying to talk to them like, hey, can we back out and go into another line and get out? And they're like, no. So we're like, all right, well, what do we do? Can we swing out and can we like touch the rail on the other side so that we're, just barely able to miss? We tried that. No, not working. Meanwhile, while we're like trying to figure this out, probably 500 people have passed us. Okay. And just in like, 5-6 minutes. Well, finally, my buddy Oleg realizes that in the barriers, these are like little poles that are in the ground and curved. If you look at the ground, there's these bolts, and they've got little nuts on one side, and so it's really easy. He's like, hey, we can just take the bolts out, wiggle it out, and we'll be able to drive past. I'm like, sweet, let's do it. And sure enough, I'm able to wiggle the little barrier that's in the ground just enough where he's able to get the bolts started, and they come out, and we both get the whole thing out, and we're able then to get the van where the barrier was and swing out wide enough where it didn't open up our van. And of course we have to put the whole thing back. The Polish guys are kind of sitting there laughing at us that we pulled this off. They're not really helping. So we start to put it back. And as we're putting it back, there was a group of about 50 more, folks that came up right beside us. And it was a little girl that was right beside her mom and her brother, like a little 12-year-old kid. And so I'm putting this barrier back in, and I turned around and I said, hey, how's it going? And I saw the little girl like she got shocked. She's like, what did he just say? She didn't say that, but that was her reaction. And then I realized how stupid I was, saying that instead of saying any sort of normal greeting. And so I quickly said, hey, privyet, hi. And she smiled, she calmed down, smiled, and kind of laughed at us trying to put this thing back in. And man, when she smiled, it did it for me, man. I was choked up. I was really choked up. And so I turned around to her brother, who's like 12, and I'm like, hey, where are you guys from? And he was talking about Cherniv Oblast. It's kind of like the province on the northeastern side. And I'm like, I know exactly what they just went through, man. It was hell on earth, and this is Monday night, and by then that's almost a week and change since the invasion started. So they've probably been traveling that whole time, in the freezing cold. This is like, just about 1 a.m. there. And everybody's cold, everybody's miserable. I'm looking like a stupid idiot because I'm trying to put all my body weight up on this thing to get it back in, so that we can leave the Polish, border patrol happy. And dude, I started crying like a baby. I mean, I could not help it. I tried everything. I told the guys or that group that I loved them as I was going. And Oleg, my buddy who is a Ukrainian American, he has the words. I don't. He threw up his fist and said, "Slava Ukrainia," and all that group responded, "Heroem Slava." And basically that translates to glory to Ukraine. And the response call is, "And to our heroes." That made me just get even more teary-eyed, man. We got back in that van on the way out, and I'm like, I need a strong drink. I need a lot of stronger drinks, man. And yeah, it's been in my head ever since.
Yep. So
I got a question. You made the comment that when you got to Poland, you saw there were a lot of, women and children refugees. that because the majority of the men are fighting, or is it they're just kind of prioritizing the evacuation of women and children first, or what's the driving factor there?
I think that's honestly both. First of all, when the invasion started, they enacted their version of martial law in the state of Ukraine, which also meant that if you are military age male between 18 and 65, you would not be allowed out of the country. So they prioritized that. But
so there was a mass conscription then, is what you're saying?
I wouldn't say that necessarily. And, honestly, I don't know too many folks in the territorial defenses. In fact, all the folks that I do know in the territorial defenses, Ukrainian territorial defenses, they're old men. They're 50, 60 and plus. I think the vast majority of true military age males had already enlisted or else began to get into units that would be more beneficial for the territorial defenses. Conscription is probably the wrong word, but then again, it's not
volunteerism. Maybe it might be a better one.
Yeah,
I knew they were preparing for it quite a bit in advance. I mean, I think they saw the writing on the wall.
They did, but also consider I don't think that the service is mandatory. Like, for example, in Israel. Military service is mandatory, and I don't think that that's exactly mandated in Ukraine. However, if you are a military age male, you're sitting around Ukraine right now and you can't get out because the Ukrainian forces are going to be like, "Don't be a bitch, go do something."
Fair enough.
So, as you talked about that, when it, like you're seeing all these people come through, you have the flights of women and children, and then probably some extreme elderly, maybe not, because
I did drive babushka from the west to Warsaw, and that was a lovely drive. Man, it was good. Sorry.
Yeah. So you have these things going on where you're seeing all these influx of people. Now you've made it into Ukraine. You've had an experience at the border where you kind of opened up your own border wall. And
yes, yeah.
You're seeing all of the refugees come, and now you're, for lack of a better term, you're in the belly of the beast. You are in Ukraine, and from there, where did you head from there? So you've got a van load of medical supplies, right?
Right. Van load. We just came in, and sure enough, our contact, nice young lady, she had her van just a couple of miles back. So perhaps I can't go too far into how the exchanges occur for operational security. I want those operations to carry on. But nevertheless, we were able to link up, offload all of our stuff, and then immediately turn around and get back into Poland in the same night. I was only truly in Ukraine for 3.5, 4 hours.
While you guys were there, did you experience any of the fighting, or were you near, or you weren't near anything that really popping off at that moment?
No, and in fact, that particular area, and I guess this is not necessarily sensitive information, but the vast majority of border crossings have not been molested by Russian forces. There was one area yesterday that was molested by a missile strike, and that was a little too close for comfort. I had a couple of my friends that were in that area and actually saw the missile strikes yesterday. But for me, no, it wasn't anything that was necessarily dangerous. It was far removed from where the vast majority of the fighting is.
And when you guys were in Poland, did you encounter any Russians who were actually against the war? Because I know they have a lot of propaganda over there that, they really have no idea what's going on as far as deep Russia. So
yeah, there was only one. I can't even call him a Russian. He was born and raised in Russia, and he's been living in Poland for the past 20 years. So he was the only guy that I met that was Russian. Met so many Poles, met a couple of German guys, met several Irish dudes. That was interesting. Not necessarily any Brits, but Irish guys. That kind of blew my mind. But there I didn't see any protest by Russians in Warsaw or in Poland, but I've heard and seen some of the protests by Russians, obviously online, and so I'm sure that that's existing, but I simply didn't see any of it myself.
And then you guys are planning another trip, or is this? I mean, I can tell it's pulling at your heart, so I think this is something you're going to continue with.
Oh, heck yes. Matter of fact, one of our good friends between Nick and I, a guy named Chris, has already sent me 4 IFACs that I've got sitting right over here. And there's a lovely couple that's from South Dakota that has told me about some combat lifesaver bags that I hope to get as well. And between all of that and potentially more supplies, I'm hoping to try to make another trip into the area either on Saturday or Sunday. It's going to depend upon a few other logistics. There's also another, beyond my buddy Oleg, who's just cavalier and went for it. There's also another group that is not necessarily sanctioned. And by the way, if you're curious, I mean, there's loads of groups doing really good work, like the Red Cross, right? Everybody knows Red Cross. Red Cross Ukraine is no exception. They're doing really good stuff. They're getting a lot of supplies where they need to go. However, the Red Cross can't give anything that's necessarily considered combat. So if I want to give them combat gauze, they're going to say, oh, it's got combat on there. We can't do anything with that. We don't want it. So there's folks that are independent that are filling in that gap. And one of those other groups that I would encourage you all to try to look into a little bit more is a group called Task Force Yankee. Task Force Yankee Ukraine is made up of a lot of vets that are kind of doing that same thing, where they're filling that gap where the large organizations can't provide security. They can't provide trauma response, tactical combat casualty care, and other assets. And so they're doing really good stuff. And I'm hoping myself I'm able to not only help Task Force Yankee, but I'm also able to help my friends who are distributing that gear for the Ukrainian territorial defenses.
Well, now that is awesome. The helping out with the defense, and then of course, we've seen stuff where there's been some refugees hurt and things of that nature, where some of the things, like you've mentioned, like combat guys, we can't have that because that stuff's icky because it has that word combat affected to it. That stuff's all life-saving devices. I mean, that's why I carry a trauma kit that has it, and it's that and a tourniquet are probably going to do more to save someone's life than changing your Facebook picture to be yellow and blue.
Yeah,
that's right, man. That's
right. Is that part of that whole situation where we don't want to send combat stuff just because it might be perceived as a situation where we don't want to, America doesn't want to put ourselves like as us, or?
Well, not necessarily America, but those particular organizations, those nonprofit organizations have to maintain their nonprofit, like, squeaky clean image. And
it's just a red tape issue. Okay.
Precisely. And also, I mean, they're focused on, just getting aid to people, not necessarily providing direct medical assistance to someone who's about to bleed out.
Yeah.
I don't know any Red Cross folks that are trained, for example, in tactical combat casualty care or combat life saving or anything that would involve immediate assistance. So, I mean, everybody's got their part. I was reminded of that today. I was talking to my Ukrainian friend who's, she's actually making nets right now, netting to cover, items, camouflage netting. And so I lamented that, I felt sick today, just not being able to be there and helping in some form or fashion. And she reminded me, like, hey, we've all got a part in this, you can't do everything sort of response. So I think that applies also to the large organizations. Red Cross isn't going to go and breach, bang, and clear. And similarly, if I'm trying to, help Babushka, well, I don't want, a guy that's going to slam a, butt stock into her face. So, mileage varies. Yeah.
Yep. That is that is very much so true. I know that, like you said, Red Cross is there. I know, like I hadn't heard of the Task Force Yankee before, but I'll have to look in and see what those are. I've also seen a lot of the one of the big reasons why I wanted to have you on or have you on to talk about this was one. I knew that there are people who probably wouldn't have the opportunity to talk to someone who was there and saw it. So, like, you saw women and children coming across. I mean, the last time there was a international refugee crisis, it was a country that starts with S and ends with Iria, and we saw the refugees coming across there were mostly military age males, and
Right.
like that was what even the news was showing. So, like, the fact that you're seeing, and you have firsthand reports of watching these border crossings come across, that's not something that most people are going to have a chance to listen to someone who had that point of view. And then when you get into it, you found yourself in a unique position where you had the ability to go there, and it wasn't just like I said, it wasn't changing your profile picture to show solidarity, because sending thoughts and prayers on Facebook has really helped a lot of people out over the years. But that's as a guy who went there and did that, I think it's important to get your story out and what was going on with it. So we've already talked about, you're getting gear together, you're gonna make another trip.
Yep.
So what's next in this setup?
Rinse and repeat until the fucking war is over. And I'm sorry, I'm using profanity again. Pardon me. Sorry.
You're fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
What's your turnaround time? Like, from acquiring the stuff, getting all the plans made, getting over there, dropping it off, getting it back. What's an iteration of this process look like in terms of a time frame?
I've been riding on LOT Airlines, and they have daily flights out of Chicago to Warsaw, and dailies back. And same with JFK. I could hop over to JFK and one leg to Warsaw, one leg back. A flight to Warsaw is about 9 hours. A flight back is about 11 hours. So let's imagine I was making a quick turn, right? I got all of my stuff going. It's maybe at best a 3-day affair to get there, get my stuff, deliver it, and go. And when I say deliver it, I'm not saying necessarily take it across the border, because from Warsaw to the border, 5.5, 6 hours.
Sure. This actually seems fairly quick, but of course, maybe I've just been involved in too much government over the years. 3 days that's pretty impressive considering the span and the scale of the operation. So kudos to you.
And that's also assuming that you're not sleeping very much. So
yeah, that's true.
That's pretty rough.
That's what the plane's for.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right. So in my aviation career, I try my best not to sleep on planes so that I am a little more apt to sleep within the nighttime hours of the location that I'm at. Even if it's a red eye, I want to try to stay up as late as I can so I'm better acclimated. I watched the entire Hobbit series coming back from Warsaw to Chicago. That was good. Now, this past week, I spent 6.5 days there. So, I wasn't only delivering, I was also trying to help out as many refugees as I could, and help my buddy Oleg, who needs something of a forward operating base, a place to rest his head and also store supplies so that he's able to be a little more efficient instead of relying on hotels. And, when we were at the couple hotels throughout the time, of course, we're going to unload everything and bring it into our hotel rooms so that if our van's broken into, like, our stuff, our personal items aren't entirely stolen. So having a base of operations is incredibly helpful. And I think he has that more now than ever. And I'm hoping he has the fortitude to carry on with this particular supply mission, because in fact, I told him just after we got back from the border, we were near, I forget the name of the town that was very near one of the German concentration camps in World War II, Krakow. we were overnighting there, and I told him, when we got there, it's like, man, I really want to go join the Foreign Legion right now. Like, I'm seeing all those, women and children, and of course the children are, crying and screaming, and they're cold and miserable. I want to get in formation and get a rifle and go do some other work. And he smiled. He looked at me. He's like, "Hey, man, if that's what you need to do, I'm not going to stop you." And I said, "Yeah," and back at you, man. And he lamented later. He's like, "Yeah, I've thought about the same." So I hope he continues with the supply runs, because honestly, the supply runs is what's making the difference in military speak. We've seen the Russians, their supply is just atrocious. They've stalled out in so many of their drives simply because they don't have gas. I mean, they're abandoning a ton of, they're abandoning so many vehicles right now that it's a running joke now that the Ukrainian farmers are the 5th largest army in Europe because they've confiscated all of the Russian stuff.
Yeah. I think it was Omar Bradley who said, "Amateurs talk tactics, professionals talk logistics," and it's
Precisely.
true, and it's traditionally been a thing that has kind of bit the Russians in the ass over the years, and for as cumbersome and bureaucratic as the U.S. military is, I mean, that's one thing that they've locked in pretty well over the years, and I mean, realistically, I mean, you look at history, that's what's crushed so many people. Hitler in World War II on the Eastern Front, Napoleon back in the day, same thing. So at the end of the day, if you can't get gas and food, it doesn't matter how many bullets you have or how good your tech or your guns are. I mean, you got to be able to move it. So,
yep, and water. I mean, I was
yeah,
just kind of a quasi water purification guy. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Water dog.
Oh man, that was me back in the day. But still, I mean, you're absolutely right. And we're seeing the degradation of the Russian advance. They supposedly have 100% of their pre-planned invasion force in Ukraine, and they can't go anywhere because they don't have gas. They don't have food and water. And meanwhile, if I am able to feel that small little bitty niche, I'm filling suitcases. I'm not filling crates, but still, that little bit of supply that's coming in there might be something that really makes the difference.
Yeah,
Well,
sometimes
sometimes
a few people for sure.
Yep, and that's helping a few people is better than helping no people.
Exactly.
That's always the way to look at it. It's every little bit counts, and it's I have said several times, maybe on record, maybe not, but I've as 3 people who may have had something to do with the United States Army sit around and say this. I've said, yeah, the Coast Guard could have planned a better invasion.
Yeah.
But,
I think my favorite, I don't know what it was. If it was a tweet or a post or whatnot, was from Activision, the makers of Call of Duty, who apologized for using Russia as the antagonist in the Call of Duty games. Had they would have known, they would have used a more how did they word it?
Sophisticated army,
a more sophisticated army like the Cubans or the Cambodians.
Oh my god!
Yeah, it's so like logisticians are a very integral part of a process, and there's a reason why you look back and go, "Oh yeah, I remember when those things happened," because like the whole invasion of Iraq, like I remember because was doing things there, and when that was going on, that was like, man, this is gonna take forever. Why are we doing this? And now this is a textbook example of why.
Yep.
And as that happens and you see it in front of you, it just makes you go, man, this is really something, and what a time we're living in.
Well, also consider that this is the first time within the last 80 years where we have seen a near peer-to-peer conflict, right? Now, I'm not saying that Ukraine has the numbers that Russia has, but as far as like capabilities and equipment, it's near peer and peer, and I think this is opening up a lot of eyes, not only in the Russian or Eastern military doctrine, but potentially in the the Pacific Ocean. A lot of those guys are starting to realize how they would fare against a Western or United States military doctrine conflict. And I think the ripple effects are going to be had for many, many, many years, just simply because the Russian forces are so ill prepared. And I mean, here's a great example. I've been told so many times that the Russian T-80s, even the T-72s, were going to be so difficult to take down. In fact, the javelins, were made with that, top down entry selection to combat some of the armor that those Russian tanks had. And we're now seeing that that's utter BS. And I mean, an RP7 can pop the top off of a T-72 and T-80 without a problem. And yeah, I mean, this preconceived idea of like the 10-foot tall bulletproof Spetsnaz soldier that is going to crush an entire company with his bare hands. That myth is long gone now.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy to think about that, because for last 20 years, in the sense that I've really been paying attention to world events, Russia was really put up on a pedestal, and I guess I was really shocked by this. And I mean, don't get me wrong, it even took us 46 days to take Baghdad, right? And the Ukrainians have way more capabilities, I think, than the Iraqis. And Dooley, you can hop in here and tell me if I'm wrong at any point.
Well, the march to Baghdad was 100 hours, and it was in 72 hours we turned the world's third largest army into the second largest army in Iraq.
Yeah.
Now here's something to interject there too. Suppression of enemy air defense, SEAD, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are now going into day 19 of the invasion of Ukraine, and the Russians have not been able to thwart any of the enemy air defenses. In fact, they've been able to maintain a quasi-air superiority because a lot of their drones radar cross sections, the TB2s, the Turkish drones, I mean, they're almost invisible. They're not exactly stealth, but they're stealthily enough that they can operate and smoke a convoy. Meanwhile, the flankers and frogfoots of Russia, the enemy aircraft for Russia, can't get into the airspace because they'll be shot down. Even last night, my friend Oleg was talking about enemy air raid sirens going off, and so they were going to go seek shelter, and then the sirens shut off. And then we learned just a few minutes later that the Ukrainians had shot down a Su-25, Sukhoi 25, one of the close air defense fixed-wing aircraft that's very similar to our A-10. Yeah, I mean in both Desert Storm, Part 1 and Part 2 and all that good stuff, we maintained air superiority completely, uncontested. And now you have this quasi-air superiority that Ukraine has established that's exceptionally beneficial for them.
Yeah.
Sorry. This is the AR-15 podcast. I'm so sorry to get into aviation speak.
Oh no, A-10s are welcome at any point in time.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't love Bert? And
oh
yeah, so this is, as we said, this is a special episode because it's not as much about the AR as it is about this situation and having the opportunity to talk to you. So as you go back, there's Jane's Book of Fighters or Jane's Book of Aircraft is actually a whole thing that people base what aircraft capabilities are for speeds and all of that off of Jane's. And which version it is, because it is a book as well as a game.
Yeah,
encyclopedia for military, around the world. Yeah.
Yep. By the way, I think mine was I played Jane's FA-18 back in 2000. Yeah.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah, I remember flying the Frogfoot in Jane's. So
it's it's so slow, it doesn't turn. What is this? This is stupid. Yeah.
I'm almost now curious to see, I haven't seen that game in 20 years. I'm kind of curious to see what is Jane still making flight simulator?
Jane's, I mean, that was kind of their first like introduction into any sort of game or simulator. They had predominantly been a UK-based encyclopedia for military type of aircraft, type of tank, type of rifle, type, I mean, just the whole thing. So if you wanted to identify what a rifle was, you grabbed a Jane's encyclopedia and you turned to the section and tried to identify what that was and who it was from and all that good stuff. But yeah, that was their first time trying to make a simulation game, and I think that was their last little bit in that.
Yeah, they made all of the sweet flashcards that like I got to use when I first got in. That's like you hold it up and it has an outline of a tank. Like, that's
Is this
a B-50.
Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, or it had all of the back in the day when I was a young soldier, and I'd pull out and like I remember finding a stack of all those old flashcards for Soviet equipment. And I sat around looking at them, and everybody's like, "Why are you looking at those old things?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. It's neat. It might be useful someday." And
I've got still down here. I've got one of those. It's just like a flip through Soviet aircraft. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I remember pulling those out of the armory, and it was a literal thing of cards for air and armor, and like playing with them, and everyone was going, "Oh, you're just, why do you care so much about this old stuff?"
Like, motherfuckers, I'm gonna have a podcast someday. I'm gonna need to know things.
Yeah. So for me, I was like, I'm gonna take a vacation to Eastern Europe, and I want to know what the difference between a flanker and a fulcrum is. God dang it!
Bam.
Yeah. No, that is a very important distinction to make. But no, so having that, and my weird interest in odd history and weaponry has brought me into a lot of odd things where I sit around and go, "Oh yeah, that's what that is," and then right back to something else. And
my first semi-automatic rifle that I had was an SKS. My dad got it for like $99, and hardware store in DeWitt, Arkansas. If you've ever been to the middle of nowhere, Arkansas, you will understand how much the hardware store plays into your childhood. And so I remember playing with this SKS, and
yes, you don't know Desolate.
Oh man, yeah. Yeah, but I remember playing with this SKS and trying to get the Cosmoline out of every pore, and was thinking, did they use this for war? Yeah.
So you mentioned that a little bit, and since we're talking a little bit about rifles, and this is kind of the this is the AR-15 podcast, what is it that you saw the Ukrainian forces carrying? Because I know we actually had a listener send us an email, and I answered it, because he was asking me about, he was asking us about the viability, like if the military really uses the 45-degree offset red dot. And I was like, no, the Army does not.
No, I didn't see any optics on any of the Ukrainian soldiers that I encountered. Iron sights only, and it looked like they were all 74s, AK-74s, which surprised me because I was expecting like 47s with Bakelite, furniture and mags and stuff. And no, it looked like brand spanking new, really well maintained AK-74s.
I mean, they don't have to go that far to get the Yugos, so.
That's true. And all the ones that I saw didn't have wood furniture. They all had like the black composite. In fact, I think one of them had one of the Magpul stocks on the back. I couldn't quite tell, but like that looks like Magpul. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, how to tell when you're a gun guy when you're going through going, what's this?
So any guy that's got the wood stock is definitely carving a notch for every guy.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. So now the Polish guys in the country, like a lot of the Polish military guys that I saw, they were carrying wood furniture 47s. And still the Walther P99s, man, when I first saw that, I'm like, are they carrying a high point? What is that? Like, you get a little closer and like, oh no, it's a Walther P99, you know. But man, I wish I could have been in a little bit more and just seen some of the stuff that they're using. But also, I can tell you just by looking at the rifle and the way the rifle was slung on the Ukrainian guys, they're pros. They're professional. They looked like they understood what they needed to do and how to do it, and yeah, it looked really good.
Good
Well,
job.
well, that is good, and I figured that was mostly going to be what they are running. Part of it is, they are a former Soviet bloc country,
Mhm.
so it's way easier to see them running, like former Warsaw Pact, stuff, and well, we haven't talked a lot about 5.45 by 39 before. It is a nasty little round. It does very bad things to a human body. It's ostensibly and well, it's a 7.62 by 39, so the 39
That's
millimeter
neck
case,
down. Yeah.
yeah, neck down to a like a 204 caliber would be the easiest way to convert it over. Now, before someone sends me a nasty email, I know that that's not exactly correct. That's just like the closest thing I can do it off the top of my head, because actually it's a 2.19 degree.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I wasn't able to see any of the particular ammo in any of the mag pouches or anything. Their mags in their kit and whatnot. The rounds were always facing down. They didn't look soup sandwich. They looked like they understood how to quickly reload, effectively and efficiently, just based upon how they were wearing their kit.
Do most of them have plates and body armor? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And substantial cold weather gear. There was one dude. One dude. As we were making our supply drop, he was kind of overseeing us, making sure we were good. He didn't have gloves, and I'm like, "You no gloves?" He's like, just kind of like, I either forgot them or it doesn't matter. And so I grabbed a pair of our gloves in front one of our boxes or totes, and I threw it to him, and he was like, "This is good." Like, all right, man, you wear those gloves.
Yep. So Ron, how can people get a hold of you if they want to help out or something like that?
Man, Facebook is the easiest. My name is Ron Carter. I'm from Colorado Springs, Colorado. If you on Facebook, it probably says Falcon, Colorado. So please feel free to reach out to me on Facebook. If you're further curious, if you don't do Facebook, maybe you have the AR-15 podcast from Mr. Nick Dooley. Nick has my phone number, and of course, I'm happy to chat with you and all that good stuff. Recently, I haven't been looking for monetary donations myself, because I want to take gear more than I want to have money. I don't want to be necessarily responsible for money. In fact, I get a little nervous when there is money involved, because I want to make sure that I have integrity, and then I produce that integrity, and that there's no question of my integrity. So as far as donations are concerned, I'd much rather carry IFACs. I'd much rather carry MREs. If you know anybody that has a lot of cheap MREs sitting around, let me know. That'd be another thing to take over.
Actually, I got a shit ton of those I can give you.
Really?
Yeah, I don't eat that shit. It gives me too much heartburn.
Okay. Listen. We do not want the vegetarian MREs. Okay, please.
No.
Vegetarian
MREs. They're
Fun fact: I once we once watched a black bear, which is an animal that will eat full baby diapers, go through a pallet of MR. Well, we had a pallet of MREs set out, and they dug through the MREs and ripped open a case of them. And the only thing that a black bear would not eat was the vegetarian MRE entrees.
I believe that entirely. Absolutely.
Even nature knows.
Yep. That's right, man. Now, and the reason I say that is because it's been brought to my attention that a lot of folks that are trying to evacuate Ukraine right now, and by the way, if you look at the landmass of Ukraine is like putting two Iraqs side by side. It's a very large country, and as a result, if you don't have transportation, if you don't have a car, and you're just kind of like on foot or like hitchhiking, man, that's going to take you a long time. And so that's been one of the concerns is that a lot of these folks that are like, humping it out, they probably are going to run out of food, and there's going to be supply shortages. Really, the further east that you go, all those supplies are being ate up as people are going west. So that is one thing that I'm hoping to take with me as well. I do have another friend who is now in country. Her name is Olga White. She's a registered nurse from New York City who is also Ukrainian American, and she just got to a hospital yesterday where she has now set up a makeshift infirmary. And I'm curious to see what all she needs to be brought in and what she can get from some of the other towns to her location. So that'll be something else to consider, is how we bring, like, say, insulin or saline bags or some of this other basic medicine to her and to those folks who absolutely need it.
Yep, and that's something a lot of people don't ever think of is things like that, like the insulin and that nature. Also, I even Googled it before you looked, because you said Ukraine's about 2 Iraqs, and I know that Iraq's roughly the same square or miles as California.
Well, let's go Texas. How about that?
It is. It's Ukraine's the
I
size
was
of
just
Texas.
doing it too. That's what I was doing my phone.
Yeah. But in Texas, if you didn't know, you can drive, or like most states, you drive for 10 hours and you'll go through another 2 states. Texas, you drive for 10 hours and you're still in Texas.
Yes.
But
so, Ron,
now, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go. You're good.
I just wanted to also point out that now you have in Ukraine more checkpoints, and the reason I say that is because there are Russian saboteurs that we know are still in the country, and the reason that we know that is because the ballistic missile, or rather, they're the Russian variant of a cruise missile attack that we experienced yesterday, it doesn't have the ability to track moving targets. Instead, you have to have coordinates on the ground, or GPS coordinates, in order to target specific structures and your priority of targets. And so the strikes that we saw yesterday were obviously identified by Russians in the country of Ukraine. And so if you are trying to drive those 10 hours, right, from one side of the Ukraine to the other, you're probably going to go through, let's say, 30 or 40 different checkpoints where they're going to say, what's your name? What you doing? Where's your passport? Who you with? I could tell you a little bit more, but let's just say that the Russians are adapting very quickly to their operations there. Wagner Group, yeah, yes, and they might not even be as interesting as some of the double agents, and of course, I mean, 30 years from now, we'll probably read so many stories of spycraft, but there's a lot of that going on right now, and so a regular 10-hour drive is probably going to take you 24 hours.
Yep. So things are moving slow, but that is to be expected. And I think, do you have anything else you want to add tonight, Ron, or guys, do you got anything else?
I just, Ron, you were listing off a few things before, so we kind of know how we can help and how to get into contact with either you or the podcast. Is there you mentioned MREs, you mentioned medical supplies. Is there any other things on the list that you want to add? Is there, like, do we need cold weather gear at this stage in the game, or is it starting to get into spring, or what? Is there anything else that you want to list off as well, just in case?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think the cold weather gear has made its way into country to that fulfillment. I don't think that that's necessarily a need so much anymore. We are almost in spring, and it snowed on us several times there. Perhaps those little emergency ponchos or the space blankets. Space blankets is a really important thing for tactical combat casualty care, where a person is suffering from hypothermia as a result of losing blood. So those little bitty things like that might go a long way. That would be another recommendation. Absolutely.
Okay, awesome.
Yep. And also, I think Ron has another friend that runs a pretty good meme page that is the at-home FFL that doesn't have an FFL. Oh,
Yet. Doesn't have
yet,
enough ammo
yeah,
yet.
yet. Yep, you can find
It
that.
still
On,
hasn't.
you can find that on both Instagram and Facebook. I think that guy knows how to get a hold of Ron as well. And-
Absolutely, he does, and if he's not blocked on Facebook or Instagram, yeah, man. Thanks, guys.
Yep. But all right. Well, we're gonna quick mention our other two sponsors. Of course, we have VZ Grips. VZ Grips, the unique features of their grips, they're machined from a solid block of G10. G10 is great because it is durable. It does not get slippery when covered when wet with mud, blood, or sweat. The 17-degree grip angle, a wide variety of textures from mild to extreme, and color options available. There are also shorty versions available. 1911 grips with standard slim palm swells, thumb notches, safety cuts, bottom profiles, and etc. More than 25 textures and 27 colors are available. There's a coupon good for 15% off of all handgun and rifle grips. That is AR-15 podcast. And I know Garth just got his. I don't know if he's put it on anything yet.
I have not, because I'm actually waiting for my newest gun to show up. I just recently bought a Black Rain, and so it'll be here by the end of the week, and that's what it's going to go on. So, and once the gun's here, I'll definitely take it to the range and be able to give you guys an update on how that grip is.
Yep, and so we have them, and of course our we already talked about patches a little bit, and we have a listener here quick that just wanted to give you a shout out, and she's saying you're doing great work, Ron. Thank you. So
hey, okay, and to answer that in a bit of Ukrainian, Slava Ukrainia, yeah.
But our final sponsor is, of course, Patriot Patch Co. PatriotPatch.co. They make amazing quality patches, and I'm fairly certain you're going to find a couple of them on that wall behind Ron there. There might be a few
Quite
of those.
Quite a bit. Yeah.
So with Jake and the guys over there, we can't thank them enough for helping us be on the air so we can bring stories like this. Thanks to everyone who stuck around with us. We realize this isn't the normal gun nerd episode, but we have a unique opportunity to talk about this. And again, if you want to, Garth, go through our social medias.
Yeah, absolutely. They can find us at AR-15 Podcast 2.0 at gmail.com, AR-15 Podcast 2.0 on Instagram, AR-15 Podcast on YouTube and Facebook. Go ahead and check us out at the network, guys. And we have all our affiliate programs there. Palmetto State, Faxon, Mind Medic. We have a couple new ones. I don't know if we're up yet with True Shot.
Yep. True Shot
okay.
is up.
And go ahead and check those guys out. Great ammo deals there through them. And beyond that, I don't think I have anything else. So I'm just going to say my happy trails until we meet again.
Tyler, you got anything to add here before we get off the air for the night?
Yeah, great work, Ron. It was awesome talking to you. It's really cool, for you guys. Dulius was a great idea. Just to get something like this, take the opportunity to actually kind of get firsthand input on what's going on and potentially ways that we and other people out there can help. So it's been great, and I really appreciate it, Ron.
Absolutely.
Hey, thanks, guys. And by the way, I mean, obviously we're all comfy in our beds and whatnot. And I want you all to remember, right now there's probably about 100,000 plus Ukrainian refugees that are freezing their butts off, and it's not even sunrise yet out there. So yeah, we have it in luxury, and they don't.
Yep, and that is important to remember. And no matter how you feel about the political situations going around this, there is nothing good of it for the people. It's the people who are the ones who are being affected by this, and that's who we should really care about. Because if you're going back and forth about how things are, there is far more of an issue with somebody who's like, oh no, it's fine for their people because of whatever. It's never fine to treat other humans like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, absolutely.
So now that I have done some sort of pontificating, I am now going to say, Garth already did his Happy Trails, and I'm still not going to sing that song. So with that, you guys out there, stay safe and stay armed.